Hi, everyone. I hope you're getting along well at home. Today, we're going to talk about our January 2015 Regents that I assigned you for homework last week. And I'm going to start by going over question 25 in our open-ended questions. So remember that these are 2-point questions for the Regents. And if we can nail an awful lot of our 2-point questions, this Regents is going to be a breeze. So Miss Fox asked her class, is the sum, right? So if I add my numbers together, a 4.2 and radical 2, rational or irrational? Patrick said my sum is irrational. So I want to state whether or not Patrick is correct or incorrect. If I try to add an irrational and a rational number, I will always get an irrational number. So yes, he is correct. And my reason is that a rational number plus an irrational number is always irrational. All right, moving on to our next question. Number 26. The school newspaper surveyed the student body for an article about a club membership. The table below shows the number of students in each grade level who belong to one or more clubs. If there are 180 students in 9th grade, what percentage of them belong to more than one club? So if I have more than one club in 9th grade, I'm looking at my 2 clubs and I'm looking at my 3 clubs. If I add together 33 and 12, that gives me 45 students. So 45 students out of 180 is going to give me 0.25. As a percentage, that gives me 25%. Number 27. We have a function shown in our table below. So I want to know which of these ordered pairs would result in a relation that is no longer a function. So remember, when we're thinking about no longer a function, we want no repeated x values. So if I take a look at my table, the one that would give me a repeated x value is going to be my -4, 1. My reason for this is, so -4, 1. And if we want to say this in a nice fancy way, since it would have an input with more than one output. Question 28. Subtract 5x squared plus 2x from 3x squared plus 8x minus 7. So when I see from, I know that expression is going to go first. So when I'm subtracting, remember we like to pretend that there's a -1 here and that I'm distributing the negative. So I have 3x squared plus 8x minus 7 minus 5x squared minus 2x minus 1. Now, combining my like terms, I'm going to get a -2x squared. I have an 8x and a -2x, giving me a 6x. And then we have a -7 and a -1, giving me a -8. Number 29. Let's solve algebraically for x. So here's a question where I have to recognize the kind of equation that I have. So I notice that I have an x squared and an x. So this is a quadratic. So the first thing I need to do to a quadratic equation is I need to get this equal to 0. So 4x squared minus 12x minus 7 equals 0. Now, for most of you, factoring this might be difficult. So we're going to use our quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So our a being 4, our b negative 12, and our c negative 7. Plugging in my values, I have x equals 12 plus or minus my negative 12, put that in parentheses, squared, minus 4 times 4 times negative 7. Putting that all over 4 times 4. So the next thing I need to do is I need to calculate the number under the radical. So taking out my calculator, 12 squared minus 4 times negative 7 is going to give me 256. So 12 plus or minus the square root of 256 over 16. The square root of 256 is 16. So 12 plus or minus 16 over 16, which remember gives us two separate equations. We have 12 plus 16 over 16, 12 minus 16 over 16. If I add 12 and 16, divide that by 16, I get 1.75. If I subtract, I end up with negative 0.25. Question 30. Graph the following functions on the set of axes below. So we have two functions that we have to graph here. The first one we have is our absolute value graph. And remember, they give us the domain that we need to use. So if I put in -3, -2, -1, 0, and 1, it tells me here that I have a closed circle. It tells me here that I have an open circle. So the absolute value of -3 is 3. I've got a 2, 1, 0, and a 1. So going over to -3, 3, -2, 2, -1, 1, 0, 0, and a nice open circle on that part of the graph. Looking at the other part of the graph, I have a constant function of 4. Now I only want this from 1 to 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a closed circle. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Also a closed circle. We're going to connect to that. And we're going to label our graph f of x. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the next part.